before I launch right into, introducing our diversity liaisons, again, today's goal is really to set up a forum where we can have dialogue with you as our partners to better understand the recruiting challenges that we're all facing moving into this upcoming season. So we really hope everybody will participate in the breakout groups that we're going to have. And those are going to start roughly about at 12 o'clock. And then we'll have about 20-25 minutes in those breakout groups to have some good conversation. All the notes from those will be captured and distributed back. So again, that's one of the major pieces of this. Another piece is we've really seen a lot of developments in the areas of diversity recruiting. So one of the things that we do within the Career Center is we employ a team of student leaders who are, we call them student diversity liaisons. Often organizations reach out to us with their challenges about how they can best increase their targeted outreach to students to make sure that they are meeting their diversity goals, but not just from numbers, right? This is something that there is broad strategy around. We want to make sure that we are helping organizations understand inclusivity, and we are promoting access and equity to these opportunities. And it's something that we want to embed in everything that we do within the Career Center. So the diversity liaisons are a team that really help us look through these strategies, and they help our employer partners implement these strategies to the best of their abilities. So over the course of the past several months, the diversity liaisons have been looking at a lot of research. They've been participating in calls with employers, and this information has been compiled into this presentation that we're excited that they're going to be able to present. Excited that Lorena and Tati are two of the most phenomenal students I've ever worked with, and I'm excited about what they're going to have to present with us today. So Lorena, Tati, I'm going to hand off the floor to you, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Awesome, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen, and then. Great. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Today, we're going to be talking about the state of inclusion and diversity in recruiting. Note here how I put inclusion first and then diversity, because as we move through this presentation, it is really important to consider that inclusion is really the most important aspect. You cannot have a successful diversity model without first creating an inclusive working environment that really allows everyone to succeed, regardless of their background and identity. However, as we move through the PowerPoint, I will be saying DE&I because that is the most recognized term in the industry, that being diversity, equity, and inclusion. So first with introductions, my name is Lorena. I am a fourth year here at UVA. I'm studying identity politics and legal theory, but I'll be going into consulting after I graduate, and I've been a diversity liaison since my second year.
Hello, everyone. It's so wonderful to meet you all. My name is Tatiana Blakely. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am a current third-year student in the College of Arts and Sciences, studying global studies and women, gender, and sexuality studies. I've been with the DL team also since my second year, so it's been a year and a half now since I joined the team. Finally, we have the newest member of our diversity liaison team. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today because it is difficult to juggle being a student and being a student employee, but her name is Deborah Yu. She is a current second year in the Youth and Social Innovation major, and she is ecstatic to be working with us and with you all.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, here are just a few of our amazing sponsors. Our sponsors are what make the Diversity Liaison program possible. The money from our partners goes into a pot that not only funds our programming, but also directly pays us as student workers. Diversity sponsors gain access to many recruiting advantages within the Career Center, such as targeted resume books and priority registration. However, the main benefit of the diversity sponsorship is that it gives your company access to the full DL experience, including recruiting strategy consulting and event planning services. Thank you to all our existing sponsors for making today's presentation possible. For more information, it gives you a little bit of places to contact if you're interested in joining the DL sponsorship.
Yeah, and as David mentioned earlier, our job here at the Career Center is really to be a bridge between students and organizations. We recognize that there's a gap when it comes to outreach. So our team was created to first breach the educational gap that a lot of marginalized communities have when it comes to employers and career prospects. I remember when I first started with the diversity liaison team, I had no idea what consulting was. So we really are looking to breach that gap, give students a better experience, and also help companies to better their recruitment strategies, to be better as an organization with diversity and inclusion. So we cover a variety of tasks within this team, and we will be more than happy to help you either figure out programs or just brainstorm different strategies for recruitment. If you ever want to get in contact with us, feel free to reach out to the account management team. We'll be more than happy to set up a meeting with you. So some of the things that we're going to cover today. First, we're going to go over why diversity, equity, and inclusion matter in the workplace, followed by some best practices for management, human resources, and talent acquisition. And lastly, we're going to share some resources and further insights on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Keep in mind that while we have gathered this information, mostly from working with corporations, this knowledge really applies to every single company across the industry, whether that is nonprofits, college and universities, and companies in the for-profit sector. So we're going to get started with why diversity, equity, and inclusion matters in the workplace. And this is a model that really shows why it is so critical for the future growth and success of many different industries. First, we have seen that throughout the course of the decade, but really started last summer with the murder of George Floyd, there's been an uprise in really customers and employers calling for more responsible work practices, both from diversity and inclusion to addressing racial equity. So it is really critical for long-term employee and customer sustainability when it comes to the industries, and more people are looking at these practices to decide which companies they're going to stick with in the long term. We've also seen an increase in the media demanding transparency for practices in companies, and this can be done through different reports throughout the year that shows that the company is committed, but we have really been seeing that push in both students and customers pushing for what it is that the company is doing to really increase that diversity in the workplace and in their industry overall. And lastly, this really shows towards an empathy-based stakeholder capitalism model that we're moving towards. And what this means is that in the past, we have been seeing that companies' main focus was profit and investments. And while that is still the case, there have been a push for companies focusing more on the well-being of their employees and the well-being of different causes that they support. These three main pillars have been researched through many studies, both done by Gartner and MIT, and we have seen that through personal experience by talking to employees and through different student recruits. So it is really important to keep this in mind as we go through the rest of the best practices.
Alrighty. So prioritizing DEI in all dynamics is key, right? I was doing some research with the MIT Sloan Institute, and there's this fantastic article they have on 3 ways leaders can make Black Lives Matter in the workplace, right? So this information comes from Tina Opie, who's like an organizational behavior specialist at MIT and the University of Virginia. And she has this really insightful sort of, I guess, metaphor that you wouldn't ask one person in your company to come up with a start to finish strategy for all your salespeople. There would be project plans, multiple people responsible for different parts of that plan, a budget, a timeline, a chain of reporting leading up to the CEO, right? In that same way, DEI needs to be embedded throughout the hiring stages and employment levels of organizations, right? So at that leadership level, there are important decisions that need to be made about tone and symbolism. Now more than ever, stakeholders are watching companies and how they react to DEI in their companies. It is not just about your annual diversity impact report. What kinds of images are you including in your recruiting processes? Whose art is displayed in your corporate offices? How does your social media team interact with the public? All of these let future employees know how your company will or will not prioritize their safety at your company. You need consistency in your commitment to DEI across every level of your company if you want to see these sort of returns in your recruiting efforts, right? Next, on the structural level, structural D&I is about being able to support diverse employees after they enter your company. Yes, many companies right now are having this push towards hiring diverse candidates, But ask yourselves, what is your retention of those candidates like? Paying attention to diverse employees, how diverse employees fare at your company over time highlights all sorts of dynamics of structural racism. In organizations in which Black Lives Matter, Black employees are equally represented across leadership roles and have the freedom and confidence to voice their opinions and challenge diversity and inclusion efforts, right? So we need to have robust reporting processes that allow employers to accurately express their experiences. The same can be said for, women in this #MeToo era, and the same can be said for Asian employees under the recent, Stop Asian Hate movement. These are all dynamics that we need to be conscious of and really active in promoting in our companies. Finally, on the political side, as recruiters, you will not be able to hire diverse candidates if the available applicant pool is homogenous. Structural racism in our education system means that often diverse candidates are filtered out long before your company's recruiting process ever even enters the picture. It's a great idea to invest resources to compensate for unequal access to employment opportunities. This not only has the direct benefit of employing the quality of your applicant pool, but such community efforts are a show of good faith and promote confidence in your company's commitment to diversity. Consider partnering directly with marginalized organizations such as community centers or, historically Black colleges and universities. Investing in their success gives you access to a direct pipeline of diverse talent. Next, DEI conversations are necessary. We cannot create welcoming spaces for future employee recruits without first ensuring the comfort and safety of existing employees. Executive level leaders need to establish an open route of communication so they can understand the everyday challenges faced at every single level of the company. Once people feel comfortable sharing their experiences without fear of retaliation, patterns emerge that can clarify and guide your future DEI initiatives, right? A healthy company culture is one where people are open to talking about and learning from prejudice and bias-related mistakes. Marginalizing behaviors are those that make an employee feel like their contribution is not being valued because of an identity they hold. There are lots of examples of this: pet names, tokenism, over-explaining, etc. Leaders can prevent future marginalizing behaviors by calling out these bias interactions as they happen. We need to recognize that racism is about impact, not about intent. Even when marginalizing behaviors occur because of inattention, those behaviors still harm your most vulnerable employees. By calling out marginalizing behaviors, people can learn to recognize the impact of their actions and see things from a new perspective, right? Our job is to empower bystanders and empower employees. The goal is to empower workers to recognize and eliminate marginalizing behaviors. We can best accomplish this by setting norms and holding people accountable to those norms. Company culture can't change overnight. It requires small changes every single day. Now, Gartner has a great podcast series on this topic if you're looking for more. I would recommend their podcast, How to Confront Marginalization in the Workplace, for more insight on how you can facilitate these sort of important conversations in your workplace. The MIT Sloan's Diverse Ideas article series, which I'll be talking about a little bit later, also has an article called How to Have Productive Conversations About Race at Work.
Awesome. Thank you. Now on to some best practices, starting with management. So this is what we would consider anything from leadership to team managers, anyone who's in charge of other people. One of the most important things is to commit to the psychological safety of marginalized employees by addressing marginalizing behaviors. This is anything from microaggressions to comments to tokenism, really addressing those behaviors and showing them and educating those bystanders how to intervene. It is really difficult from someone from a marginalized community to speak out in an environment where they might not be comfortable, or speak out in the face of maybe someone who's a superior. So bystander intervention is really, really critical in these instances to make sure that everyone in the company is supporting each other. Again, we're making this about the entire environment being inclusive, and fostering that community is one of the most important aspects of creating an inclusive environment. This can be done by employee trainings, but also by creating an environment where it is okay to have an ongoing conversation about different biases, different racial issues, and really encourage employees to talk to each other about these issues. It is also important to publicly set and commit norms, behaviors, and outcomes for management and employees. Having common norms across the company is really going to facilitate those conversations and make sure that everyone is comfortable knowing what it is okay and not okay to do. And secondly, commitment is also very important because we want to see consistency when it comes to upholding those norms and continuing conversations. And lastly, make sure that you're supporting victims of these behaviors privately before engaging with human resources. It's important to give people time to process whenever things happen before bombarding them with human resources. Though it is also very critical to involve human resources in the company, we want to make sure that we are prioritizing the human aspect of diversity and inclusion before moving in to those company bureaucracy.
All right, now the human resources part has, I think, a much more widespread impact than a lot of recruiters do realize, right? Because your HR team and how they're handling their existing employees is going to come through in your sort of recruiting process, and in those interviews, employees are going to be able to tell sort of how they will be interacting with people within your company. And so you need to clarify things for existing employees so that way your recruiting processes can be the most inclusive they can be, right? So we need to instill a sense of responsibility for DEI outcomes into executive leaderships. It is not enough to have a single DEI position that handles all aspects of diversity. It is the responsibility of every single member of your leadership team to meet your company's inclusion goals. Create and reinforce DEI language that is intentional, specific, and actionable. This language should be created after you've spoken to your employees and identified those DEI goals that need to be addressed. The language you choose to promote your initiatives has a big impact on your programs. Let's consider the difference between equity and equality, belonging versus acceptance, DEI versus D and I. Even small shifts affect the overall tone. The language you choose has to resonate with all of the stakeholders to best encourage participation, right? And like a study of this is like PepsiCo, right? This is a company that has had robust D&I initiatives for lots and lots of years, but have revamped their strategies after the events this summer with police brutality and overall racial injustice. Their current D&I initiatives use language like racial equality journey, urgent, listening, holistic, systemic. They mention victims of police violence by name. They not only offer financial support to these initiatives, but they have specific and actionable rollout plans that include community investment, diversity within their own supply chain, and concrete diversity goals at the executive level, right? This is what we should be striving towards. Focus on lasting change in a few DEI initiatives over many episodic DEI initiatives. This is something that I see a lot in our partners. Studies conducted by Gartner conclude that episodic programs do not have a lasting impact on workplace behavior, right? An episodic program can at best influence employee behavior for the next 6 months. They do not create a different employee experience, nor do they address the root issues that create problems for marginalized employees. We have to change the underlying systems. Finally, encourage real talk sessions where employees can express concerns and provide support for anti-racism and diversity education. You know, human resources really exists as the liaison between employees and that upper level management. So it's important to help facilitate personal connections between senior leadership and employees. Consider utilizing your ERGs to create dialogues. While it's not a good idea to overburden your ERGs, they can offer vital perspectives and resources for initiatives that are being spearheaded by your leadership team.
Lastly, for talent acquisition, there are 3 main points that are really important when approaching recruitment practices. First is to focus on outcomes over incomes. What we have seen is that when employers only focus on inputs, those being skill-based or experience-based, they're allowing for potential recruits to self-delete out of the process. So take into consideration a recent mother who has taken a couple of years of work to take care of her family. If she sees in a job description something along the lines of 2+ years of experience, she might just say, well, I only have a year of experience, so I'm not qualified for this job. However, if we change that to this employer must be able to produce weekly reports, that person might be like, oh, I can absolutely do that, and be most likely to apply. These practices, though small, can make a really significant difference when it comes to the people applying to your job. Also, we have to consider moving towards interviewing non-traditional candidates. If we establish a candidate profile, that might lead to promoting practices that have been discriminatory in the past, because people from more diverse backgrounds are statistically not those standard or profile candidates that we have seen in the past. So we really have to move towards what are some of the skills that we absolutely need, what are some of the outcomes that we need, and eliminating the image of this is what a perfect candidate would look like. We've also seen that more now than ever, candidates have more non-traditional experiences. People might have gotten degrees through a skill set by Coursera or any other online courses that are still valuable skills and still serve to their jobs. So we have to be able to consider those. And lastly, we have to demonstrate a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion as we move through the recruitment process. It is not enough to show up to campus and say, we are an amazing organization, please apply. We have to instead say, we're an amazing organization. These are the steps that we're taking to ensuring that you are going to be included and successful in the workplace. And this is how we're going to show you that we're doing that. In the past, we have seen that sometimes when we're talking to organizations, they say, well, we haven't been able to recruit people from marginalized communities. What are we doing wrong? And they're sending 2 white recruiters to recruit those groups. So making sure that you're taking into consideration these populations when you're approaching your recruitment process is really, really important, because we want to make sure that students are able to succeed from the start to finish when their journey with your company. And in doing that really starts with the talent acquisition process of the job. And lastly, these are some resources. Just want to make a quick announcement. If you go over this, these are actually hyperlinks. I know that they're not underlined, but you will be able to click on them and they will take you through another website.
Reina, Tati, phenomenal. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And again, if you put some questions into chat, we will forward those into the breakouts. We will also do the best that we can to address those as follow-up when we send the materials out to everybody that is on the webinar. Again, our diversity liaison team is amazing. These are amazing student leaders that are very active within the clubs and organizations. So if your organizations are struggling with your diversity strategy, you're looking for assistance on how best to engage on grounds, we can set up any organization what they call the way again, going back to our account management at the model at the beginning that's led by Courtney Harris. We coordinate a call with one of our account managers and then with a diversity liaison on the line to really help you build out that strategy. So we're here to support you, and we're here to support all organizations. So with